You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel.
The railway started as a horse-drawn tramway. At Sittingbourne, the barges used to come up to the wharf. They'd unload, but then they had to get everything into the mill. And there was a tramway built, which ran across a short viaduct over into the mill being about 10, 12 foot higher than the road level, because it's on a slope, so you went in at a higher level. And they used horses to drag wagons into the mill. And it was 1905 when they decided that they would be better served by having some steam engines to do it rather than horses.
If you travel on the train, you're crossing marshland and then the boundaries of the country path, and then you're into an industrialised and then a suburban area. It's a very varied route.
It's hard to believe that viaduct just up the way there is 100 years old, you know, it's just incredible.
At the moment it's cost us around about £120,000 since we took the railway over in conserving the viaduct. There were issues over it in the early 90s when some clever engineer took one look at it and said, I'm sure that's not safe. And we had to stop working over the viaduct while we carried out full investigations. We got ourselves our own consulting engineers who said, you haven't got a problem with that, it's built like a tank. We had the Royal Engineers in doing testing on the concrete, and they blunted 2 diamond-tipped drills trying to take samples. So it was a very early example of concrete construction, and it was really over-engineered.
First time I visited this site properly, it was a quagmire, something like it is today, unfortunately, because it's clay. The base soil is clay. That was like that for about 2 or 3 weeks. It was rather embarrassing, because we got to a point where we had to go to Sittingbourne because we couldn't do anything here, because we couldn't even move. It was like walking around in a bog.
There's a lot of photographs of incriminating photographs of people who are now around in their 40s and that, who are there sitting with their dad in short pants or short skirts. Our 2 sons kill me for ever showing is the 2 of them are aged about 4 and 6, leaning on the fence in the sort of, short pants and top, watching a train.
Came down to the Sittingbourne and Kemsley. It was during the time when the line was closed. The leader was sat at the back of the shed here, just near where we are at the moment, and had sat there for almost 30 years. There was no boiler on it, there was no smoke box, just the frames and the wheels. And I remember very early on, Mike, our loco engineer, collaring me, saying, right, we've got a job to do, got in his Land Rover. We drove to where he was then working over on Detling Beacon, cold place to work, and had to pick up the smoke box, the new smoke box. So we loaded that in the back of his Land Rover and dragged it out and moved it here. So the new smoke box would have been built by Mike, probably during his lunch times, maybe after work, but it was an exact copy. Then the next job was further work on Leader. It was off its wheels, and so two of us got some little pump jacks. You'd think they might lift your car up, but two of these jacks, we popped them underneath sleepers and underneath the frames of Leader, and jacked it up a small amount, pulled out one of the sleepers, let the jacks down evenly on both sides, did the same at the back, and within a couple of hours we'd lowered Leader back down onto her wheels, probably for the first time in, again, 25, 30 years, which makes you feel a little bit more for an engine. You know, I love the look of it anyway, and when you put it back on its wheels, and then later on we hung the brakes on it, and I was probably here, maybe not the first steaming, but certainly the second test steaming, and you know, to see an engine come back to life after 30 years was quite remarkable.
At the moment I'm helping with a project to get one of the steam locos that's been out for about 45 years up in steam again. That's Alpha, yeah. From a visual aspect of the loco, she looks in good nick, but when you start actually getting into the loco you can actually find more problems. The boiler needs a very good look at to see how well that is. If it's rusted away inside, then that's going to be a lot more money to spend, but if it's in very good nick, which I'm hoping for, it will cost a little to get it back and running. Some parts will have to be made new, but because there are some spares lying around, you can actually get the spares up and running again and put them back onto the loco. She was built in 1932. I think a lot of people will be happy to see Alpha up and running again.
It was very bleak. A lot of people weren't sure if it was going to carry on or whether it wasn't. We were all hoping and working towards keeping it going. And the idea was, if we keep everything up to scratch, when we do actually get back to running, we haven't got any problems, we can carry on. So really what we did, we just came down here and hoped that we're going to get some news sometime. And we carried on working as we do. And we had more chance, of course, to take the carriages out of service and to repair them and replace bits and pieces. So it was a hard time. It was quite joyous when we got back to the news that we were opening again, which was brilliant, yeah. So long may it last.
We haven't got wonderful scenery. We haven't got a lot of the other things that some of the railways... We haven't got big engines. We've got a fleet of engines that always worked here. This is a little sort of bit of history in itself. The only two engines that never worked here are two of the diesels, and that's purely because having one diesel is a bit restricting. If it breaks for any reason or you have to overhaul it, suddenly you've got a steaming engine to just move a wagon. Well, it takes 2 hours to steam an engine, and then you've got to do all the clearing up afterwards, whereas a diesel, you can go in, turn the key, and off it goes. So that's the only reason why we've got extra diesels.
Well, it's if you look at some of the old pictures of Rhythm Dock and Kemsley, you know, you had cranes dropping paper reels and pulp wagons. They're industrial wagons, you know, and yeah, they got abuse. But some of the old pictures we have for our historic records, it's a wonder they kept on the track.
Suppose, well, this is just my opinion. I mean, everybody's got their own opinion, but it'd be nice to have a carriage shed. Keep all those coaches out of the weather, because they deteriorate a lot over the winter. That's what we're working on at the moment, you know. But then somebody else would have better priorities, you know, have contractors in and build a brand new viaduct. You've got the odd couple of million. It's amazing how some of these other railways manage, you know, staggering amounts of money.
Just like to see it grow and become really popular, and people appreciate the fact that it's here and come and use it as often as possible.